WC of YouTube. The dynasty continues. Yes, folks, it's the WC, man. Here with the legendary classic video. This is the 2017 NBA Draft Review. In this video, I'll be going over the top 10 picks. All right, I'm going to jump right into it. What? No, the Celtics traded this first overall pick. I mean, you guys already know this. The Celtics traded the first overall pick to the 76ers, and the 76ers are on the clock. And they took, with the first overall pick, Markel Fultz, guard from out of Washington. I like Markel Fultz. All right, I think that he went here to DeMatha here in D.C., and everybody knows about DeMatha High School and, you know, the rich history with the basketball history that they have there at DeMatha High School. So, you know, local guy in my case. Markel, folks, let me be non-biased, because that's what this video is. This is why this video gets views, right? Markel Fultz is like, you know, and I compared this to him the other day. He's almost like he's a Derrick Rose almost. He's like a Derrick Rose type in my case, because he's going to be the primary ball handler. At least he should. All right, you draft a guy, you know, like this guy. He has a bunch of explosive moves. You know, and they didn't really think that, you know, Rose was going to be necessarily a primary ball handler, even though that's why he was drafted number 1 overall, to be that draft, you know, to be that guy. But Markel Fultz is a guy that just kind of does everything correctly, man. I mean, you know, he has a high basketball IQ. You know, he shoots the three well, has high character, very smart guy. But he, you know, I think that defensively he can get a little bit better. All right, I do think he can get a little bit better by watching his defense and everything. The guy plays in Washington, so you really don't get the chance to watch too much of him. All right. One thing that kind of bothered me when I was watching the coverage of ESPN is that they sat there, Jalen Rose compared him to Bradley Beal. There is no way in the hell he's going to be Bradley Beal. All right. Bradley Beal is a 20 times better shooter than Markel Fultz was, even coming out of the draft. All right. Markel Fultz can develop that shot. But it's one of those things where, like I said, we just gonna have to wait and see with this guy, man, because we've seen a bunch of guys go number 1 overall and not really live up to that hype. He reminds me of, don't you know what? This is a name that the people aren't putting out there. He reminds me a lot of a Chris Paul. He reminds me of Chris Paul a lot. All right, I'm gonna cut this short. The Lakers on the clock with the 2nd overall pick, and they selected Lonzo Ball, guard, UCLA. So I'm sitting over here, I'm looking at this, and I'm saying to myself, you know, LeVar Ball has basically sold, you know, a lot of people a lot of beans with this guy. And, you know, I think that I look at Lorenzo Ball, and I'm like, you know, he has an awkward, like a Kevin Martin type shot. All right, but it just kind of seems to go in. A quick release, if you want to say it like that. And I'm looking at the Lakers, and they trade D'Angelo Russell. They basically trade D'Angelo Russell and then they go out and they draft D'Angelo Russell for the most part. All right, this guy, you know, is the best passer in the draft, no doubt. They're comparing him to Jayson Kidd. I don't think I would go that far, because Jayson Kidd had a complete game, and it feels like Lorenzo Ball has a part of his game that really, really, really needs to be developed, and I think it's defensively for sure. Does this make the Lakers a playoff team? You know, like I said, LeVar Ball can sell, you know, anybody a bag of beans, okay? But this is just not it, all right? You know, is he the best guy on the board at this point? You can debate. We can debate this back and forth all day, okay? And you know, that's not to say that Lorenzo Ball does not have upside. He definitely does. But it just doesn't make sense for Magic Johnson to trade D'Angelo Russell for, you know, and then replace him with Lorenzo Ball. It just doesn't make any sense from my standpoint, because they look like the same player. And you know, and you can argue and say that, you know, D'Angelo Russell didn't have the right coaching in LA. You can say that. You know, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? 3rd on the clock, the Boston Celtics with the 3rd overall pick. And they selected Jayson Tatum, forward from Duke. Now, I don't know what the Celtics are going to do with Jayson Tatum. All right, before this video is over, he might be traded. But looking at him from the perspective of how he fits with the Celtics, this is not what the Celtics need. Okay, but he's probably the best player on the draft right now. You know what I'm saying? Very good. They say he's a dynamic scorer. I watch a lot of Duke because they're in the ACC and everything. So he's got some parts of his game that need to be developed. Is he going to help the Celtics beat LeBron? No. All right. So I don't. This is a project pick. For the most part. I mean, he's a role player. This is a high pick for a role player, man. I mean, this is what Duke players are for the most part. You know what I'm saying? Outside of maybe one or two exceptions, but I'm not going to hate on the guy. I do like his game. I think he reminds me a lot like a Evan Turner, a guy that could get his own shot, that can make his own shot. But by no means do I think that Jayson Tatum is going to be like maybe a Grant Hill or something. I don't think that he'll be Grant Hill. You understand what I'm trying to say? I mean, there's room for him to prove me wrong, but I doubt it. Next on the clock, the Phoenix Suns, and the Phoenix Suns need just about everything, don't they? I mean, well, they got some shooters there in Phoenix, but they took with the 4th overall pick Josh Jackson, guard, Kentucky. Now, as y'all can see from the thumbnail, I actually like Josh Jackson. I think that Josh Jackson is just like, for a team like the Suns who need just about everything for the most part. Like I keep saying they need everything, but they've got shooters, man. They've got guards. They've got a few big men. He's just another high energy guy. He like Justin Jackson reminds me of Justice Winslow. Like he reminds me a lot of him. From the standpoint of when you look at him, you don't necessarily look at him and say that guy is a pure scorer or that guy is a dynamic scorer. He's more so of a good energy guy. You understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah, a good energy guy with great athleticism. You understand what I'm trying to say? I think that this guy could develop into a triple double threat. You know what I'm saying? By the time his career is over, he's got a lot of explosiveness, and I like the way that the Suns are trending, but this is not like a spectacular pick for the Suns. Like let's be honest here, okay? This is not a spectacular pick for the Suns because it doesn't make them immediately 20 times, 30 times better. But in a draft like this, where you can just kind of pick where kind of pick the kind of guy that you want to mold into a superstar. I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of goes in that direction. All right, so with the 5th overall pick, the Sacramento Kings are on the clock, and they selected with the 5th overall pick De'Aaron Fox, guard, Kentucky. Now, the Kings basically gave up everything when they gave up DeMarcus Cousins, so maybe this is a place for them to start. They made a couple of trades. I'm not going to get into the fine details of those things here. I'm just going to talk about the pick. De'Aaron Fox is very, very fast. And in the NBA, ball handling skills mixed with, speed and athleticism set you apart. And, they compared him a little bit to John Wall. I don't think that De'Aaron Fox is as polished as Wall was coming out of the draft because, Wall was just a one-man fast break. He was a blur. He was a finisher. He was a defensive problem. De'Aaron Fox has got some stuff. He's got some work to do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he does. You know what I'm saying? Another guy that has some work to do. Shooting is not necessarily great, but the guy just has a good feel for the game. You ever see a player where it's just like you just know he knows how to play basketball? That's De'Aaron Fox right now in this draft. And when you play with that raw emotion, it just sets you apart, and it made him a top 5 pick. How does this work for the Kings? It kind of like immediately it doesn't. Is a guy that I think that maybe in a year or two from now we'll be talking about maybe he's an all-star. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he's a difference maker, but he's got to work on that shot, man. He's got to work on that. Okay, with the 6th overall pick, the Magic are on the clock, and they select with the 6th overall pick Jonathan Isaac, guard, Florida State Seminoles. All right, so I like all these guys here in the top 10. You know what I'm saying? I'm starting to like all these guys here in the top 10, and Jonathan Isaac has got length, athleticism, very good shooter. It's one of those situations in which I think that, like, and this might sound crazy. Out of all the picks that I've talked about so far, he's probably the most NBA ready. He's probably the guy that's probably going to come in and make the biggest impact in his rookie season for his team. Because Orlando is one of those teams, like, they just kind of feel like they're on the brink. They feel like they're close, but no cigar just yet. And, like, a guy like Isaac Jackson, I wouldn't expect for them to just kind of throw this guy into the starting lineup or anything like that. But, if he can work on his upper body strength a little bit more, you know what I'm saying, be a little bit more of a ball hog off the glass, this guy could, like I said, this guy could be an all-star going forward. I mean, it's there for him. Next on the clock is the Minnesota Timberwolves with the 7th overall pick. And they selected Lauri Markkanen. I think he last played at Arizona, a guard from Arizona, right? This is a trade. He's going to be a part of the trade for Jimmy Butler for the Timberwolves. So they're basically making this trade for Chicago. To speak on that real quick, I like it for the Timberwolves. I think that, it's only, like, they've got a lot of young talent there, in Minnesota. Jimmy Butler makes more sense in Minnesota than he would have in Boston. So I like the trade there, and like getting the Markkanen. Markkanen has a lot of potential, man. This could be the Kristaps Porzingis of this draft, man. I mean, only difference is that Porzingis was a little bit more polished on the defensive end, on on the offensive rebounding and defensive rebounding sense of it. I don't necessarily get that from Markkanen yet. This is something that he can develop, man. I mean, they should be able to run pick and rolls all day there in Chicago. He kind of reminds me of a Paul Gasol, length and being, a nice shooting touch. I like it for Chicago. I like this pick for Chicago. And I like the aspect that, I mean, the Timberwolves are going for it, man. With Jimmy Butler there in the Western Conference, they should make the playoffs next year. There's no excuse for Minnesota not to make the playoffs next year. They need to go out and probably bolster their bench a little bit more, get a couple free agents to come there, and they're a playoff team next year. So Minnesota, you should be in the playoffs next year. There's no excuse for you guys now. All right? There's no excuse. The 8th pick in the NBA draft is going to be made by the Knicks. Now, you know how much I go. You know how much I give the Knicks a hard time. But with the 8th overall pick, the New York Knicks selected Frank Ntilikina, guard, France. Now, I know the New York crowd, man. They probably not gonna like this, man. But I like him. You know what I'm saying? He's very athletic, very smart basketball IQ, a good shooter, can hit open jumpers. And we know that the Knicks ain't hit too many open jumpers last year, so this is a major upgrade for the most part from that standpoint. But let me get real. Is he the savior or anything like that? No. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know what the Knicks fans really expect. You know what I'm saying? This guy can do just about everything on the court from a guard standpoint. You know what I'm saying? Will he be like, a perennial all-star or anything like that? Probably not. You know what I'm saying? I think that he is a great change of pace guard that can just about do everything on the floor and that can shoot and make open jumpers. Something that you guys like, and Phil Jackson, with this triangle thing, he's not going to give it up. All right, he fits right into it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this guy, starting before the year's over. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. With the 9th overall pick, the Dallas Mavericks selected Dennis Smith, guard, NC State. Now, Dennis Smith is the type of player, I think that he's a pretty good shooter, good athleticism, good passer, finishes well at the rim. The only problem that I see with Dennis Smith is that I don't know if he's tanking it at times. I don't know if he's taking like a couple plays off or something, man. When you watch the tapes on him, it's there. Like, it's clear as day that it's there. And like I'm gonna tell you like this. During the course of the season, you can catch every NBA player slacking. All right. Like, but it's like clear as day with this guy at times. Like, so, I don't know, like, is he a high energy guy? I think that he can be. I think that it's something that he'll work on in the NBA. I don't think that this is something that's going to hinder him. But as far as how he fits in for the for the Mavericks and everything, I think he fits in pretty well, man. I'm not looking at him and saying that he's going to be a guy that just kind of comes in and just takes over that shooting guard role and just dominates or anything like that. But I think that he's a good complementary piece to a team that is clearly, that's clearly rebuilding there in Dallas. And this guy is a good scorer, man. I mean, he scores in bunches, and I like I like it. I like it for the Mavericks here. Next on the clock, Sacramento Kings again. And with the 10th overall pick, the Sacramento Kings selected Josh Collins, forward slash center from out of Gonzaga. Like, John Collins is like the more prototypical power forward. He's not that stretch forward, like John Isaac, like I was talking about earlier, with his versatility. He's got some good athleticism, but he's like that prototypical, power forward. And that's not saying that he can't be dynamic. And by the way, this trade is going to Portland, by the way. That Sacramento is making for Portland. So, I'll mention that down in the comments for all you guys to enjoy. All right, but I think he's got an NBA body. I think that the guy has pure athleticism. But in today's NBA, maybe not like maybe he's more so like a Fareed or something. If he can score a little bit, he'll be I'm not going to sit here and say that he's Whiteside or nothing, but it's a pretty good pick. All right, so that's the top 10. All right, I gave you guys a full breakdown on the top 10 in the NBA draft 2017. All right, so let me know how you guys feel about it. You know what I'm saying? Draft grades, who winners and losers. Let me just go ahead and give y'all that real quick. It's hard not to say that the 76ers are the winners here. I mean, they got the most complete player in the draft, and going forward, it's just we're going to see what Markel Fultz, and then the clear-cut loser. All right, I have to say this every single year. All right, and I'm gonna say it again and again and again and again. The Brooklyn Nets are the losers. They get no better. All right, trading for D'Angelo Russell and Timothy Mozgov is like basically like, and I'm not taking crap on those guys. They don't necessarily immediately get better doing that, but they did something. The Nets organization did something. So I can't say that they're complete losers, but this pick was basically theirs to make. First overall pick was theirs to make, and they just gave it away for an unreasonable shot at the championship. So it's the WC. Let me know how you guys feel. I gave you guys almost 20 damn minutes. Almost 20 minutes of audio for the first 10 picks in the NBA draft. So drop a like, drop a comment, go ahead and ship this over to wherever, share it with whoever. It's the WC, man. I gotta exit the video now. It's been real, and until next time, peace out.